Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. The Our Driving Concern Employer Traffic Safety Program is pleased to be offering the webinar, Driving Towards Excellence, Taking Your Driver Safety Program to the Next Level. Our presenter today is Lisa Robinson, Senior Program Manager with Our Driving Concern. A few things to note before we get started. Everyone should be muted, but just in case, would everyone please hit *6 on their telephones just to make sure that you're muted. This silences any background noise, and it ensures confidentiality for all the attendees. Again, just *6. You do have the ability to type any questions during the webinar, and Lisa may answer your questions during the presentation or choose to address questions at the end. A PDF of the presentation was made available for your note-taking, and if you have any problems printing it off, just please let me know. If you should encounter any problems or issues, please type a message and let us know, and we'll try to help you out with that. Lisa's contact information will be available on the last slide. There is a very brief post-event survey at the conclusion of the webinar. Because this program is funded through grant dollars and provided at no cost to employers, we would greatly appreciate your feedback. And with that, I welcome Lisa, and I'll turn it over to her to begin.
Great. Thank you, Deanne. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'm glad you're taking the time out of your day to talk about how do you take your driver program to the next level. I work with a lot of employers across the state, and it's interesting some of the things I learn and I hear. So I'm hoping that today I can give you some great information about best practices, what to have, what to think about, just some things that help you maybe do things differently. So we're going to get started. Transportation incidents are the leading cause of workplace fatalities. And you know occupational fatalities are transportation related. But a lot of times they kind of get overlooked because OSHA shares a lot of information about all, slips, trips, and falls and all these other things that might happen occupationally, but we don't get enough information about transportation incidents and how they relate to the workplace. And so when we talk a lot about transportation being the leading cause, a lot of employers' eyes light up. And so I always like to remind people that we talk about, to work, from work, driving is a part of your job, somebody that maybe just does errands, somebody that's a fill-in driver. So I always remind people that it's really the most hazardous part of the job is somebody who drives. So next, again, as I mentioned, we've seen an increase. And, a lot of employers that we work with, we always like to say data should drive what you do because a lot of people in the oil industry and the energy sector say that they're really driven, the safety leaders are really driven by the data. And so I think it's really important to know that we've seen nationally as well as in the state of Oklahoma as well as Texas an increase when we look at fatal injuries with transportation, but also when you look, overall and then you look at transportation. So understanding that increase has been significant. So again, if transportation, you're not thinking a lot about it, you probably should be thinking about that. So let's talk about, crashes. A lot of times most companies, they're going to do an investigation. They're going to figure it out. But what we do know is that probable cause of crashes is 93% of the time there's probable cause crashes are due to human error. So that's why it's really important that your driver safety program be a very strong program because there's other things that can come into play, absolutely, the environment, the vehicle, maintenance, things like that. But quite frankly, 93% of the time is our driver. So we have to look at that. And, another thing that drives that employer is the cost. Your bottom line's affected. And so a driver program is not simply just so that someone, their driver behavior is acceptable. The employer is looking at their bottom line. But I also share this slide with you so that off the job really is important. A lot of employers will say, I just really care about them buckling up from 8 to 5 or 7 to 5 or whatever the work hours. And I said, but quite frankly, you really care about off the job because their driving behavior impacts your costs as an employer off the job, especially when you look at lost productivity, lost work time, all of those things. And a lot of times employers are real quick to say, what's the area I should focus on? So I'm really quick to tell you, it's not one area, but when we talk about transportation safety, there's a myriad of topic areas that we need to cover and have included in our traffic safety program. You can't just focus on one area because you're going to leave out some of the other critical components as well. And understanding that across the board, all of these driver behaviors impacts the employer. So you can't just focus on one or the other. I absolutely love this slide. It's one of probably my favorite slides because I think it's really common that a lot of times companies or people working in the job of safety tend to do things, well, we've always done it this way. Or somebody newly hired comes in and they're like, this is how we do it. And it's the way we've always done it. And what I have to say to that is, if you've always done it the same way, you're always going to get what you've gotten. So if you're not pleased with something, a lot of times they may change staff. And I say, that's great that you've hired a new safety person, but did you give them new tools? Or did you put this new safety person in the role that the other safety person did with the exact same tools? So you can't always assume maybe it's the staff person, maybe it's the tools that they're given. So you've got to look a little bit longer when you say, we've always done it this way. So one of the things I say is, how are your safety meetings, right? They're a key component when we talk about making your driver program go up a next level. Make your driver program effective. You know, I tell people this all the time, safety's not sexy. Most people would rather have to go to the dentist, be somewhere else other than a safety meeting. And a lot of times, if you're the safety leader, I'm sure you're going to understand whenever I say you look out at the audience and you're trying to talk, and maybe you're talking at them instead of with them, and you see blank stares, people on their phone. You know, unfortunately, safety meetings sometimes become a checklist. We filed it in the file. We're in compliance. But sometimes our safety meetings and our safety outreach and our safety education, it's not effective. We're not actually seeing change happen. So I always say, what's your data telling you? Because if your data is telling you that you're seeing an increase in even minor incidents, you're seeing an increase in, violations, you're seeing an increase in this, that's going to tell you that something's not quite working for you. So again, safety is not sexy in any way, but you can certainly make it effective where people listen to you and people hear and people implement what's important to the company. So how do you shift that culture, right? How do you do things differently? How can you be more effective in what you're trying to achieve? What can you do as an employer? What can you do as a safety leader? What can you do as a coworker to shift the culture from one of maybe complacency or we've always done it this way? What can you do differently? Okay, this is probably I kind of combine this since our webinar is kind of short today. I combine my 3 slides together because I think they're all 3 really important. You know, to me, I think you have to think outside the box. If you've been using the same tools and you're getting the same results, or you haven't really thought differently, think outside the box. I always tell people, ask other people. It's legal to steal ideas, get suggestions. It's really, really, really important to think differently to achieve different results. That's one of my biggest things to think about. The other one, and I made a comment a minute ago about, do I have a new employee using the same tools, so I'm probably going to get the same results? And I'm not able to, I don't know that you guys can answer me if I ask the question, but my question a lot of times is, do you know the difference in the red and the black plunger? I probably use this at almost all my presentations because it deals with tools. I always say, do you know the difference? You tend to find the red plunger most places that you go. And very rarely does anybody really know the difference between the two. Well, the difference is a black plunger is for the toilet and the red plunger is for the sink. However, you tend to find that red plunger most places, even next to a toilet in places that you go. So I always tell people, how effective were you using that red plunger in the toilet, right? Sometimes it doesn't work perfectly. So I always say, think about your driver program like plungers. What tools am I using? Am I using the right tools to achieve the success I want, or I am using the tools I have on hand and I'm willing to try it again and again and again and hoping that it's actually going to work for me. So I think that, the simile there with, using those plungers to think about how you use your tools, I think is really important. Also, I always like to use this potty training because I look at this as potty training as, thinking about education, thinking about what we do, thinking about how we treat our coworkers, our employees, those we work with. I always say you got to think about potty training because really anybody who's potty trained a child knows you never took them to the toilet and said, this is how you do it. You walked away and your child was potty trained. It doesn't work that way. Otherwise, I've got twins who are 18 and I have a 22-year-old. Otherwise, my children would all still be in diapers, right? So when you think about it, it's effort, it's time, it's training, it's education. And so a lot of times in the workplace, we assume everybody's adults, right? We assume we can give them a directive. We can tell them something. If they've got it, they understand it, they're going to do it. And I tell you, that doesn't always work that way. You really have to apply some of the same principles with potty training when we think about driver behavior, education, training, engagement. You've got to think about some of those same principles because you can't do a one and done and think I've explained it, so it's going to take effect and we're going to have impact. So those are probably some of my three biggest keys. I've got 10 more things we're going to go over, but those are some of my three biggest things when I talk about affecting your culture and affecting how you do things if you're wanting to see change happen. So I've got about 10 steps about how do you step up your game, right? How do you promote safe driving practices, okay? Helps your bottom line? Absolutely. Most employers are driven by the bottom line, absolutely. And unfortunately, we hear over and over and over again, the first area that a company cuts costs is in safety. Because when safety is going well, they don't have costs. So sometimes they don't see their investment in safety. They don't understand it and they may not realize it. So I think one of the biggest steps that you can think about is, again, continuous, ongoing, and 100% of your employees. Again, continuous, ongoing, and 100% of your employees. What happens a lot of times is we only focus on certain employees. We might focus on those who are new drivers. And what happens and what we know from data is it's not necessarily our new drivers that have incidents, but maybe our seasoned drivers. And part of that comes from complacency. Also, we've got fill-ins, right? People who maybe fill in for us. They're not really targeted. What we do know is people that occasionally drive, they fill in, they tend to die at a higher rate. Again, we kind of forget that sometimes. We're not really looking at that. Sometimes we're only focusing on our fleet drivers. You know, we're not thinking sometimes about those who drive in rental cars, driving their personal vehicles. I talk to a lot of employers, and after I'm done talking, somebody will come up to me and go, you know, I'm getting ready to get on a plane, and I'm going to be in a rental car, you know, for 30 days, and my company didn't say anything to me. And so sometimes when we're thinking about our driver program or our training program or our education, we tend to really focus on that fleet, right? We think of maybe that new hire, that new driver, right? But we forget sometimes our entire employee population based on the job they do. They may be management, and they're, as I said, going from location to location in a personal vehicle. They may be going in, you know, company vehicles that are cars, not big trucks. We sometimes aren't including them. So we have to make sure that our driving program is really considering 100% of our population. When I say ongoing and continuous, absolutely. What we find is, or from talking to employers, we learn that they might do a defensive driving program, whatever that might be. They're going to use a program, but maybe their drivers only go through it once or twice a year. They're not doing anything else beyond, you know, their requirement. And so what I tell you is, it's really not going to cut it if we only do it once every so often. You know, it's got to be continuous and ongoing, and it doesn't mean that we pull everybody off their jobs to have safety meetings, because that's absolutely not what I'm saying. But you have to find those little kernels of ways that they continuously see what your messaging is. People are in offices. People are on the road. You know, there's different ways that we communicate. It may be text messages. It may be email. It may be posters. There's a variety of different ways that people see and hear your messaging without simply making it a every year training meeting that everybody's got to go to. They've signed in and filed it in the file box. So I always say think differently, because to be effective, you've got to think about all your employees, and it's got to be continuous and ongoing. Also, too, one thing that we know, or I notice when talking to people, is your senior management. You know, I talk to a lot of employers, and they'll say, we can't get this passed because our vice president, our city official, our this, or that. They don't want to give up their cell phones. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. Or we'll find that they've implemented a policy, but upper management's not really following it. And so you have to have senior management involved. You've got to have leadership involved. They've got to allocate the resources. They've got to be able to set policies. They've got to be able to enforce policies, but they also have to participate. The biggest thing is you may think you've got a great program. You've got great policies in place. But when you've got leaders, even when I say safety leaders, safety managers, when they're not following the rules, what that tells everybody else is those rules don't matter. So if that rule doesn't matter, then other rules don't matter. And when you talk about safety, that's a really important place that, you know, it should matter. So again, senior management, your safety leaders, your safety managers, they're very key in making your program successful. They've got to have buy-in. They've got to support it. they've got to encourage it, but most of all, they've also got to participate in it, and they need to be involved at all levels. So again, that's probably another key point, that if you don't have that, figure out how you get them to be involved. You know, and I will say this, a lot of times when you want to work with management, talking about the dollars and cents, that usually gets their attention. Again, money drives a lot of the decisions that companies make, and that's a key component for senior management. Okay, policies and procedures. You know, they've got to be very, very clear. They've got to be comprehensive. They've got to be enforceable, but they also have to be enforced. They've also got to be communicated. What we find is, or, you know, working with employees, when they are hired, they may sign same policies, but a lot of times they're not revisited. So it's really important that, first of all, a lot of times when somebody's a new hire, it's pretty overwhelming when they're a new hire. All of this information is given to them at orientation, right? And remember what I said about potty training? You know, you've got to revisit it. You need to communicate it. So it's really important that those policies are revisited, right? You've posted them. They're aware of them. They've discussed them. It should be something that's, you know, not just done when they're hired and they sign off on it, but it would be something that's reminded on a regular basis so they're aware of them. Also, too, again, when I say enforce, it's really important that that policy that you put into place, you can enforce it, and you also need to make sure that the policies are enforced for 100% of your employees 100% of the time. Because a policy that's not enforced often and not for everybody is going to be a really weak policy. It's also going to have some risk of liability there as well. So, driver agreements, absolutely. You need to ensure that your employees know what your expectations are. That is really important. A lot of times when people come to training, they don't know what the expectations are. It hasn't really been told. Now, a lot of times what we'll hear from the employer is, well, we told them, but I'm not sure that sometimes that telling them actually comes across sometimes. So employees need to know what the agreement is. They've got to acknowledge it, they've got to be aware of it, and they've got to understand it. So that is really important, especially when you want to talk about maintenance, what the reporting expectations are, what's the performance, different things like that. It's really important that you're really clear. Also, does this apply to your contractors too? So a lot of times companies that use subcontractors, they're also going to apply some of these agreements to the subcontractor and the employees that maybe drive for them. So what's your expectation? These are things that you as a company need to decide, and you need to figure out what you're going to do. But again, clear policies where your employees understand them, they've signed off on those policies, so they understand what the expectation is, you know, how to report when there's an incident, all those things. So again, that driver is a part of the solution here as well. In addition to the policies, they're a part of the solution. Something else as an employer that you need to do is you need to check the driving record. Absolutely. And sometimes employers only, you know, check the record when they hire somebody. Some companies are going to check those records on a routine basis. And it really is important that you do check those records routinely. Also, have you defined the number of violations that are allowed? Have you also given instructions to your employees so they know what the reporting is? What's required? Are they only supposed to report on incidents that happen at work, off the work? What is your requirements to know as far as their driving citations? So that's a really key component in making sure that your employees know, but also as the employer, checking those records routinely is really, really, really important so that you have an understanding of what's your risk, right? A lot of times and also too, when you have that information, you need to act on that information too. When you talk about the policies, I'm talking about enforcing as far as driving violations, because if you get the information and you don't act on it and you've got policies in place, that can also open you up for liability and also open you up for risk. So as I said, you do need to check the driving records routinely. Another thing, if there's a crash, if there's an incident, what is your policy on that, right? Do you have processes in place? Do you have a reporting system? Do you have an investigation process? I know on our website we do have a best practices, which gives ideas and guidelines, and you can go to our website to find that. But again, what's your process? That's really important. I've been somewhere before where an employer I went to speak somewhere, and somebody backed into my rental car. And when they went to do the report, they have this piece of paper, this blank, it just has a couple little lines, and they're taking a report on it. And so probably they didn't get enough information when they were gathering it at the time. And so we do have a best practice on our website as an example. But all incidents, regardless of severity, they need to be reported. Does that employee know what the expectation is, right? your procedures and your policies should guide your drivers. And it shouldn't be that these policies and your guidelines are hidden somewhere on a website. They're in a book on a shelf up high. These should be accessible even if it's on your company website, so you're like an internal portal where your employees always know where they can look and find information quickly to know how to act. Do you have a cheat sheet that's maybe carried in all employee or in all fleet vehicles? That's a great thing to have for employees as well. So how do they find the policies and procedures so that they can guide them, right? So again, also, all crashes should be reviewed. You need to determine what the cause was. Again, at the beginning of the webinar, I told you that about 93% of our crashes are operator error. So it's really important that it doesn't matter how insignificant it is, that you review all crashes you document and you have that information to act on. Again, it may need to mean that your driver needs retraining. That is going to be a guide for you. So again, what is the expectation? And I think that's really important and again, another driving factor for you as well. So what about vehicle selection? What about maintenance? What about inspection, right? What do? There's a company that we work with, a trucking company, and they know that I believe they told me it was around $18,000 to replace that clutch. They know that if their employees drive those trucks well, it saves them money. They're very much aware of that saving them money, right? So they do inspections, and it's worth money to those employees when that truck comes back clean. So they know what the cost is. So as far as the company goes, maintenance and inspection of your vehicles is very important. Same way with vehicle selection. Which one does the job that you need? What about safety features? What safety features do you want on those vehicles, right? So what about personal vehicles? This is one thing that I hear from a lot of employees that, that conversation doesn't happen. Are you communicating with your employees, especially if they're using their personal vehicles? Are you communicating with them on their own personal vehicle maintenance? Because, again, we know that maintenance can impact crashes. So are we having those same conversations with people that are using, the employees that are using their personal vehicles? Same with your contractors. Again, safety reflects positively on the company. So again, these different things prevent crashes and those losses that are associated with that. So that's why proper maintenance and routine inspections are key, as well as selecting the appropriate vehicle, as well as also communicating with employees who may drive their own personal vehicle on the job. So what about disciplinary action, right? What's your strategy? What have you developed to determine, what's the course of action that you're going to take if a violation, a crash, you determine that it's preventable? Well, most programs are progressive. Most programs will have a progressive discipline policy, okay? Some will have specific actions outlined. And what happens when they hit certain numbers or certain things? It's got to be identified as a company what your policy is, what your strategy is, what's your system. And I always tell people, if you don't have one, ask somebody at another company, somebody that maybe you work with, somebody that you may partner with. Ask them what their guidelines are. Look at those because they're going to have a similar type of employee base. I always tell people to be careful that they don't just use a packet or a program because maybe it doesn't fit your company or your model or your employee base. So it's really important that you maybe look for similar companies, similar style, similarities there to be able to look at. You always want to make sure that your legal has looked at it as well and get buy-in, again, from maybe your safety team, your safety leaders, that kind of thing as well. But, again, you really need to have a plan in place for what happens if. Well, what about a reward and incentive program, right? I did mention potty training earlier, and I'm sure a lot of you, as well as I, used incentives when it came to potty training. And I always say a lot of times adults and employees are just like children. We know that incentives, positive, increase driver behavior. We know it increases, driver behavior. We know it encourages people to do what you want them to do when you've got an incentive program. And I always tell people incentives along the way are huge. And it can be something as simple as their name on a board. They're seeing their name pinned up that, hey, no incident. Again, rewards, incentive programs, recognition, whether we talk monetary, special privileges, it doesn't matter what it is. But what we do know is that incentives and rewards motivate people to do the right thing. So if all they're always going to get is a negative, that's what they're used to. But a lot of times you can flip that by looking at using those incentives in the positive, and people like that. It encourages them to do the right thing. So regulatory compliance, absolutely. That's a critical component because you as a company can get in a lot of trouble with fines if you're not adhering to regulations. So that's also a key component. And most companies we find are very much aware of what the regulations are, but some of the other components that they need to have in their driver programs that maybe they don't have as much of, where, again, with regulatory compliance, they tend to be a little bit more aware of, but the other things maybe not as much so. So I want to share a couple things with you. UPS, they encourage that their drivers do not use reverse. They're discouraged from reversing. We know that when you back up, it accounts for 25% of the collisions are backing up incidents when we only back up, 1% of the time. So it's disproportionate there. So we also know that they're encouraged to drive right, not turn left against traffic. Essentially, they're doing that because the amount of time that it costs them when they're waiting. They're going against the flow of traffic. At UPS, good drivers are rewarded. They also know time is money. They look at data to increase productivity. So they know that when they're sitting there trying to wait to turn left, that it's costing them money. They know that idling is costing them money. That's a lot of times why you see those UPS drivers running, right? So let's talk about a few best practices real quick. City of San Antonio, they really in the last year implemented a lot of driver safety initiatives in a variety of ways. They've got 12,000 employees, about 5,100 drive for them, but they've seen a reduction in DUIs and DWIs. And why that's important, as well as, suspended licenses, but why that's important is those employers are at work. They're not off the job. So they haven't lost productivity as a result. So that's a benefit to them. Dallas ISD has seen the lowest cost in 4 years of at-fault incidents. They have made a huge investment in policy, and they prohibited all cell phone use hands-free and handheld, but they've also made ongoing driver education, employee education, visual. They're using a lot of visual. You can go throughout their buildings, and you're going to see posters. You're going to see information. They do a lot of, face-to-face as well. But they've incorporated things at multiple levels, and they're seeing payoffs. The last 2 years, they've seen the same thing. City of Arlington has also seen a reduction among their fleet and the drivers and their costs. As I said, their costs, again, it's been a benefit because they've invested in it. It's been an ongoing thing. They came to some of our trainings a few years ago or a year ago, and that's what made them create the employee portal. A lot of companies have an employee portal. They'll have an external portal, but they'll have an internal portal that they'll put a lot of resources, visuals, image, graphics, different things like that, so the employees consistently reminded of the messaging. Again, City of Sugar Land, they've seen an 83% decrease in crash-related costs. Vector Energy also saw a 50% reduction, and Alpo Champion also saw a reduction. Again, all of these companies are seeing reductions in crash-related, fatalities, incidents, payouts, vet metal costs. Again, they've all made the investment in the front to make driver education and creating a program and a plan a priority, and as a result, it's paying off for them. MedStar, they had an ambulance driver that actually left a gas station and killed somebody not on a call. And so they decided at that point they were chasing crashes and needed to get in front of them. When they put drive cams in the vehicle, they realized about 72% of their drivers weren't buckling up. They've seen a huge shift in getting in front of their crashes, but what's really important is they've seen unsafe behaviors continue to trend downward. That means their risk is less. They've also decreased their speed. They know that going 10 miles slower per hour is only about a minute of response time, and that's reduced their risk. So that's been significant for them at the different things that they've looked at. What's great about Buffalo Gap is they've invited families, they've also invited contractors. What's really great about that is family and friends, families especially, impact your bottom line. So if a employee's child is in a crash or the spouse is, that employee's not going to be at work because they're going to maybe be at the hospital with them. That's also going to hit your fringe rate because of your medical costs, and now you've got lost productivity. So we know that it doesn't cost them any more money to open it up to family members, contractors, and other people. What we have found lately is that employers are starting to send information home to the family unit because they know that that family unit can help that employee do the right thing. So one of the resources I do want to share is our project is free because we're funded by the Oklahoma Highway Safety Office. Again, we're a project of the National Safety Council, but through our Oklahoma Highway Safety Office dollars, we have everything for employers dealing with transportation to help your safety program go up a level. And everything that we do is free. I will say this, again, one of the best things that you can do is use the social media because, again, that's free. That can be when they're off work. They may see messages that come across. Your safety leaders may see something that they can use. They're going to see images. They're going to see information, educational things. Again, it's all free due to our grant. So, again, it's just a great tool that any employer in the state can utilize. We try to consistently add materials. Employers tell us consistently what do they need. In fact, we read up on the safety the other day, and we found out that we have a looping file. It's about 20 minutes long that we developed for monitors, so that a lot of companies will have monitors sitting in break rooms. They'll have monitors in locations where before drivers get their vehicle to go out. And we find that a lot of places are using this in their safety buildings. Different places that they are, this monitor has got this looping file, so they're consistently seeing this safety message. Again, not pulling them off the job, not talking at them, but they're consistently being reinforced. So that's been one thing that we've noticed. Another has been this really popular for us is the toilet tabloids. So again, we consistently have developed things that the employer can use and take advantage of where they're not having to hire staff, they're not having to really do a lot of research, but they can find all these things at their fingertips to make their driver program a little bit more comprehensive. Again, so they can also have an ongoing communication with their employees. Training is another key component. What we find is a lot of times we'll have people that come to training and they say that they're the safety leader for the company, okay? They're in charge of safety. But they'll say, I was just told I'm in charge of safety because we have to have a safety program. So they don't have really enough knowledge to be able to pass the information down. And a lot of times we have safety leaders, we have safety managers, we have people at different levels that are required to have conversations with the employees underneath them, but they don't have the knowledge. And so one of the things that we do offer is a 4-hour free training. You get a curriculum and there is no cost. We partner with the Oklahoma Safety Council, and that's held in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Every month you can go to training. We also partner with different conferences around the state to offer it as a free conference. And if there's enough employees at a location, we'll offer it at another location around the state as well. Our website, okdrivingconcern.org, it's consistently updated with resources. You can pull down any of the tabs. You can ask for resources. You can join our email list. All of these things can be found on our website. You don't have to be a member of the National Safety Council. Anybody can use it, and it's 100% free. But we're consistently adding safety talks on there, resources that we develop every month, posters, flyers, the toilet tabloids. Everything is loaded on the website. You can also request print copies as well from us. Online learning is another way that we reach people because they would like something maybe electronically. Everything is also can be used on a tablet and a mobile phone, a mobile device. So the driver quiz comes for the Defensive Driving Program of the National Safety Council. We have that online and in paper. The road sign literacy quiz is really great because it's been a long time since a lot of people were in driver's ed and really focused on what road signs mean. We've also got some e-learning units, too, that take less than 5 minutes to do, but again, it's going to reinforce some of the messaging that you want them to remember. Safety coach cards, these are really great. They can be used in an office, but we actually develop these for outside an office setting because there's so many employees that never step foot in an office. Their office may be their vehicle or the job site. These fit in a cell phone pocket. They fit in a wallet, a back pocket. They fit, a cell phone holder. There's a multitude of places. They're real small, about the size of a business card. They have a question on one side and an answer on the other. I always tell people whenever people are, gathering around, why not capture the 2 minutes of something educational, something that you really want them to talk about and address, right? So we just updated our deck of cards. We also added railroads, driving the trucks. We have a multitude of different things that have been added into there. But again, it's capturing those 2 minutes. And so it's a great way to make sure that you're doing consistent and ongoing education with your employees. And again, it helps that person who's your safety liaison, safety leader, safety committee, whoever it might be that's having that conversation, or even the coworkers. Maybe they pass it around who's going to have the talk. It allows them to have the information that they need to have that conversation. Because I'll tell you, some of the things that we've done started as a result of an employer saying, can you tell me more so I can understand the topic better? That's how our safety huddle started. So we created them with a little background information so that person's knowledgeable to have that conversation. Toilet tabloids, these are probably, I'm surprised, these are probably one of our most popular items that go in the bathroom, porta potties, everywhere you can think of. I find them in airports. I find them in lots of different places. But again, I'm not pulling anybody off the job, but they consistently see messaging that makes their drivers safer drivers. That, as I mentioned, that looping file, this is what the looping file looks like when you can download it. You can ask us for a copy. We'll send you a flash drive with it as well. But again, it's 20 minutes. It's a great file. Also, too, as I mentioned earlier, we've got webinars. And as we wrap up this webinar, I do want to share with you that we've got 2 upcoming webinars, and we actually sometimes we'll have more webinars than this. You might want to continue to watch our website because we continue to add additional webinars as we find speakers, topics, things that we're asked for. So again, this by no means is just the next few, but this is a couple that I wanted to share. The aftermath of a fatality in the workplace is pretty amazing. Carl Carlson works with Becco Contractors, and there was a fatality that occurred in the workplace. He's going to share some things that will help anybody who's not been involved in that or may have, give you some great information and what you need to be prepared for and how you deal with that if that's to occur. Again, great. I cannot stress enough what a great webinar that's going to be with Carl Becco. And then the other one, sharing the road with large trucks. This is really important because we know in Oklahoma, we have seen in the last, I think it was 2015, we saw the largest increase out of any state on large truck fatalities. And so it's really important to know, how do we share the road with trucks? We've got a lot of trucking. We've got the energy sector. And so in our state, we see a lot of that. So it's really important to know, how do we share the road? And we see crashes every day that deal with rollovers, big trucks, the vehicles. So again, I want to mention that these 2 webinars are upcoming. You can sign up to attend, and we will, again, watch the website because you'll see other webinars. So are there any questions, Deanne?
I'm going to give just a quick second to see if anybody types any questions in. As you're looking at Lisa's contact information, and again, that was provided in the slide presentation to you. Any questions? Doesn't look like it. Well, thank you, Lisa, for this great educational seminar or webinar on taking your driver safety program to the next level. And I want to thank everyone who attended. We know your time is very valuable, and we hope you gain some useful information and resources that will assist you going forward. And if you would take just a quick moment and fill out the post-survey webinar, and please check our website, again, for the future webinars that Lisa talked about. And there are additional webinars as well going out to the rest of the year, and we'll be adding more as well as we schedule those. This webinar will also be available on our website in about a week as we archive all of our webinars. We try to bring helpful information in quick and easy formats that you can take back to your organization and start using immediately. And with that, we thank you, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.